next segment tonight, on Monday night, when the grand jury's decision came down, the streets of Ferguson were filled with protesters. Many of them heard the stepfather of Michael Brown say these words. The looting, the arson took place not long after. Some suggest his words incited the crowd. So, can he be charged over his words? Were they, in fact, the equivalent of shouting fire into a crowded theater? His wife defended those words today, saying this.
His emotions were taking over him just like mine. He just spoke out of anger. It's one thing to speak and it's a different thing to act. He did not act. He just spoke out of anger.
Joining us tonight from St. Louis is radio talk show host McGraw-Milhaven. And with us here in New York, attorney Stacey Schneider. McGraw, what would you do? Would you, in fact, if you were the authorities, charge him with inciting a riot?
Well, first of all, the video and the audio is absolutely chilling. And superimpose that on what happened shortly thereafter. I think the authorities and the people of St. Louis would give him a lot of leeway depending on what he's going through and the emotions. But at some point, you have to come to the conclusion that words matter, and that if you're yelling, we need to burn it down, and you're looking for a microphone to say it to as many people as possible, and then an hour later, Ferguson is burning, you have to seriously question what he was doing, and was he in fact helping to incite a riot.
Stacey, how do you prove this? You're a lawyer. Now, I think McGraw's got a prima facie case. The man standing there saying, "Burn this." I'm not going to repeat it, but burn it down.
You know what? It's not a case. Words don't matter if the words are legal. And in this particular case, there's a Missouri statute about inciting a riot that falls under disorderly conduct. And you have to be advocating a crowd to violence. But you have to look at the context of this statement, Juan. Yes, it's offensive. Yes, it's crude. But he just had heard shortly before, and I'm not defending him, but you have to really look at how the law fits. He just heard that there was no indictment from the grand jury, and he's in the passion of the crowd and the emotional excitement of the crowd, and everyone's riled up. And you can't automatically assume that those words, "burn this beat down," mean that we should go through the city committing arson and looting. He could have meant, in the context of that setting, I had enough with the criminal justice system. I had enough with what the grand jury found. There was no indictment. I'm upset.
All right, well, McGraw, do you have any question about intent here? Because what you hear from Stacey is maybe the guy's just angry. He's frustrated.
Yeah, I think she is a contortionist trying to justify what he said. Look, here's the deal, and the question is, did he actually find out at that moment? There were reports that the family was tipped off before Bob McCullough ever went to the microphone.
He's the he's the prosecutor. Just so the audience realizes. He's the prosecutor who made the announcement.
Benjamin Crump was quoted in different outlets already telling people that he knew the outcome. And so Leslie McSpadden and the stepfather are out there in front of the police station. They probably already knew the decision. So when the decision came out, all of a sudden he's outraged. But why are you outraged? You already knew the decision.
Yeah, but you're assuming what's in a man's head just because there's passion about this issue. You don't know if that's his crude form of expressing, I had enough with this garbage. You don't know that. You're assuming what the words meant, but you're interpreting them to be illegal. It doesn't mean they are. And if a prosecutor were to look at this situation, they'd have to look at the words in the context of which they were spoken.
So you don't think you could get, hang on, Stacey, you don't think you could get a prosecution?
I don't think prosecutors have enough in when these words were said and where they were said and what was going on in the crowd to show that he was inciting people to violence. He was saying a stupid thing.
Okay, McGraw, let me just say to you, if I'm the guy prosecuting this case, I'd say this man, Louis Head is his name, 38 years old. He's got prior convictions, felonies. So I would prove the case that this guy was intending to to incite, do you believe that you could get a prosecution? You're not a lawyer, but I'm not a lawyer, so I'm asking you.
I don't know if I could get one, but I do know the city of Ferguson is debating on whether or not to charge him with assault, because a few weeks ago he beat up Michael Brown's grandmother, who was trying to sell Michael Brown t-shirts on the street. He has a violent past. He was telling people to burn it down. An hour later, it's burnt down. If you own Ferguson Market, do you at least have a civil suit against them? Because guess what? The Ferguson Market and Sam's Market was burned down. And Stacey, you said he had just found out. And so the benefit of the doubt is it was all emotional. But he already knew. He already knew, Stacey. Stacey, he had already been tipped off. The family already knew. So when we all found out, he already knew.
All right, Stacey. We're talking about a very brief time span, and you're talking about someone in his position who is disgusted with the situation. So it's his position. He used vile, crude language, but you can't automatically assume that he was inspiring all this crowd that was already worked up to go ahead and burn down the city. And you're standing in the shoes.
Stacey, what about charging him with lesser crimes? A peace disturbance.
I mean, you could,
lesser degrees of public nuisance.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're not unreasonable in asking that. You could charge him, but those are petty misdemeanor crimes, and do you really want to flame up tensions more by...
Wait a second. The guy, that was a serious... People lost their businesses. People were threatened. Property burned.
Well, who are we blaming? The people who did that act, or the words that came out ahead of it?
Well, how about the guy who said, "Burn, baby, burn"? You don't know what the guy meant. It wasn't a nuanced sentence. He wasn't speaking Latin.
All right,
well, in your world, yes, but from his level of sophistication, it was a bunch of garbage.
Well, we can agree on that much. I think all of us do. Stacey, McGraw, thank you both very much. Plenty more ahead as the factor moves along this evening. We'll hear the words of